Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about FX's Dave, Season 2, Episode 6, entitled Somebody Date Me. The title's pretty obvious. The episode spends the majority of its time kind of following this courtship between Dave and Doja Cat. While this episode didn't have a lot of meat on its bones, like there's not like, a whole lot of different things going on, it mainly focuses on this kind of like texting between Dave and Doja Cat and then showing how their individual days are going. I thought this episode was really good. Like, I really liked what we kind of learned, like our takeaways from this episode, because like for me, I don't know, nor do I care about the dating practices of celebrities. I don't give a fuck who's dating who. I don't give a fuck who broke up with who's fucking who, how they got there. I don't give a fuck about celebrity relationships at all. But I think partially because of the fact that I don't care, I don't have any kind of knowledge about how that works either. And I wondered after this episode, like, is this kind of how the dynamic works when you're that famous and you can't just, casually meet up with somebody because they're, oh, I'm in the studio, I'm at a photo shoot, oh, I'm doing this thing, oh, I'm doing that thing. Like, do they end up in situations where people are actually looking forward to maybe seeing somebody on a real level and they can't get around to it and things go left? So I thought that was a really interesting dynamic to watch it play, especially because, like, from us as viewers, right? We probably feel like I think we're all together on this that we kind of feel like she out of his league, right? So like, I'm spending like a lot of the time. She's way more famous. Like, I'm not gonna go into the reasons. Y'all know. Like, come on. But I'm spending the whole time wondering like if she's like fucking with him. Like, is she really like into him? Like, does she really want to see him, or is she kind of just like, let me fuck with this like little Dicky white guy? Let me go fuck with this guy. And throughout the course of the episode, it kind of seemed like she was actually into him. And I liked how they did a good job of a juxtaposition between her text messages with Dave, feeling very casual, feeling like, kind of like on the same shit that he was on, right? Because you got on one end, she's doing the text, and then she's off to do like more famous people shit. Like, and when I say more famous, I mean people who are more famous than Dave is. So like, she's off, here's some nice text, and now I gotta do this photo shoot. I gotta snap on some of these people who aren't doing their shit right. Now I gotta go do this video, and now I gotta practice these dance numbers, and like, she's super busy and doesn't really have time. And they do a good job of that by showing how that being her actual interest in Dave, by showing how every time she starts to return to her phone, there's like 18,000 things going on between like messages from managers, apparently, Twitter notifications, a number of replies. I don't know why you'd have that if you're famous as a push notification, and news articles popping up. Like, I don't even really know why you'd have that. I feel like you let your manager read the fucking news articles about you. Don't worry yourself with that straight up. Like, but she's got 18 million messages, and she picks up her phone and she texts Dave. So like, from our perspective, we see a woman who's very, very busy, who is still into this guy and is responding to his text messages in a manner that can't help but make you hype for this date. So like, they're having a good conversation, but we see what's going on in Doja Cat's world. And then conversely, in Dave's world, he's doing stuff, but again, he's doing less famous person stuff. Like, he's not as famous as her, so he's not bombarded with all these different things going on. So he has time to just like, boom, fire off a text message, and then kind of like sit there and look at it like, okay, is it read yet? Is she gonna say something back? Because what was he doing? Like, he went to this Ray Shrimmer video shoot, which that was weird. I don't really know what that scene was about. It just felt like they just really wanted a reason to put those two in the episode, and they just did it. But that's the one thing I didn't like about this episode. I didn't like anything involving Ray Shrimmer. Like, I didn't think that video shoot was weird. The way they were behaving was weird. Like, I don't know, that was weird. But he's got that going on, and he was doing something with Els before that. Side note, are they cool now? Like, I didn't realize that the situation that happened at the bar mitzvah last week was enough to make them kind of like squash everything. But they seemed like like they were back to square one after that. Like they really did dead whatever issues they had after after they set free the alpacas. So I don't know, but yeah, it seemed like they were cool again, which was kind of surprising to me. I felt like that was just like a moment. I felt like that was a good moment that was going to lead to them having a tough conversation. I didn't think that next episode they'd be cool again, but that's neither here nor there. So Dave has a far less busy schedule, so he's able to kind of like hunker over his phone and kind of like wait for messages. And I mean, like, I'm sure we've all been there, right? Especially as men. Men are way more way more sensitive than they let on. So it's like, I think we've all been there as a man. So when you fire off that text, you kind of like looking at your watch, like, when she gonna call? When she gonna text me back? Like, if it take a real long time, and then it's even harder if you're a celebrity because you got obligations, right? So like you might not be able to text back some sexy shit to whoever it is that you're texting, but you got to go on Instagram Live to promote some product. And we saw that. Like we saw her going on IG Live, and then like as soon as it's over, like what the first messages is like you didn't promote the product or something like that. So like we see that's not her just like fucking around on Instagram Live like all us regular people would be doing if we did it. That's her doing that for work. Like okay, I'm supposed to be out here pushing a product. But then from Dave's perspective, as a sensitive man who has way more time because he's not as famous as her, fires off this text message. He's not getting a response. Then he goes on her Instagram and she's live talking about whatever the fuck. Like you can't help but feel a way about that, and you wanna accept it and be like, yes, it's Doja Cat. She's famous, whatever. Maybe you start even wondering, is this even really her that I'm texting with? All this kind of stuff, right? And, it can lead to a situation where you end up kind of snapping a little bit. And from Dave's perspective, his reaction is not unwarranted. He's looking like, okay, we booked this date for 7:00 today. I kind of need to know if I'm still going or not. And to kind of just be completely ignored for a large portion of the day, you could see why he would snap a little bit, right? And then what makes it even worse is, and I love how they did this, which is why I thought this was so interesting, this whole dynamic between these two. We saw how busy she was, how she wasn't able to get back to the messages. Where she fucked up is that when she started to get ready for the date and didn't pick up her phone and say something to him. Like, I feel like any sensible person, once you start getting ready for the date, you're going to go, start saying stuff. You can't just assume when you haven't spoken to somebody, and we'll just say it's been 3 or 4 hours since she last texted Dave. Like, you can't assume if it's been 3 or 4 hours that person's just going to show up at that location and assume you're going to be there. Like, I want to hear like I'm on my way, or yes, we're still on at like 5 o'clock or something, something, so the fact that she didn't say anything once she started getting ready for the date is where she fucked up. But from our perspective, we saw how busy she was, right? But then from Dave's perspective, all he sees is I sent a message. She hasn't responded in hours. She goes on Instagram Live. Like, it feels like I'm being played here. And then what I thought was upsetting was like, you could tell she really wanted to do, like, she was into him. Like, she really wanted to go on this date. So to see him snap on her like that as she was about to walk out the door, you could see she was really disappointed. I'm like, wow, they really made like a really nice little singular kind of little interesting romantic experience in within this little half-hour show. So I thought that was like really cool. I felt bad. I'm like, man, she was really into this, and she's so busy, she can't find time to like date and stuff like that, and she actually found somebody who she was actually kind of feeling and was going to have a good time with, and he fucked it up, and she was disappointed. And yeah, I thought that was really, really well done. I thought that was a really well-written episode. And then furthermore, we now see a little bit more of Dave's consequences, right? Dave does something and it goes left. And that's kind of what we see consistently throughout the show. And now we see in this episode the snowball effect of how one action can create a snowball effect that leads to an action that you probably aren't anticipating happening, but somehow it gets there. And I think if you've been on this channel, if you watch my videos for Kevin Can Fuck Himself, I'm going to say it on this video. I always say F himself on that video. I'm going to say it here because, I mean, what else, right? We're talking this show, man. We talked about everything on this shit. So, but if you watch my videos for Kevin Can Fuck Himself, I've said the same thing, that the main character on there, Allison, she has done things that have ultimately come back to, not necessarily bite her in the butt, but like she has a goal. I want blank. And then out of spite, she'll do something different. And then that thing somehow affects the thing that she originally wants. So it's like you wouldn't think the two things would be connected, but they somehow end up connecting. And it's because she didn't do the right thing in this other situation. And it kind of just, it somehow ended up being connected to the other thing. And that's what happens with Dave here. You know, again, justifiably, he gets upset with Doja Cat. Now, like, we know her reasons. And so from our perspective as the viewer, it's not necessarily justifiable. But from his perspective, as someone who's been being ghosted for a few hours, he's right. You know, like, you know, common decency, right? You know, at least say, hey, I'm busy, or I'll get back to you later. Yes, the date's still on. 2 seconds, right? So from his perspective, he's not doing anything wrong by chastising her a little bit. Well, I can't say a little bit. That was like 3 long paragraphs. But what ends up happening now, he ends up canceling the date with Doja Cat. Now he reaches out to this Sadie chick, this other chick from this app that he's been messaging on the side. Now all of a sudden he's free. And now she's looking at him the same way that he's looking at Doja Cat. She's like, oh shit, the famous guy has time for me now. So I'm going to ditch the regular guy that I'm supposed to be out with, and I'm going to go out with the famous guy. And what do we see? The regular guy she's supposed to be out with already at the restaurant, finding out his date's canceled. He opens up his dating app, and who does he click on? Allie. So now I loved that ending. I thought that was a great ending because it's like, you know, all from the fact that Dave was not patient enough with Doja Cat. Again, I see where he's coming from, but again, at the end of the day, he was not patient enough with Doja Cat. Had he not sent those messages, he would have smashed Doja Cat on that night and he'd have been a fucking legend. But instead, he sent those messages. Now his date with her is canceled. He goes on a date with the other girl who was supposed to be on a date with somebody else. And now that somebody else is now going to be presumably seeing Allie. And what a turn of events. And that's what I like about this show is even in an episode where things are a little bit more even tempered. It's not like a crazy episode with all kinds of wild shit going on. You still end up in a situation where things snowball in a very bad direction for Dave, and he doesn't even know it yet. But there's no way they don't show that, and then something doesn't come of it. So it's gonna be tough when he finds out that Allie's seeing somebody else, and yeah, it's gonna be an interesting Final 4 episode. So again, not much to discuss on this episode other than that dynamic, which I thought was great. But I thought this was another great episode, really interesting. You know, it still had some laughs, even though it focused mainly on the romance part. But I found the romance part to be really interesting. I don't know. Is that how celebrities get down? Like, is that how they got to get dates now? I don't know. But great episode, and I'll see you guys next week for episode 7. Peace.